Well, good morning. We'll call our March meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Our minutes, we've got minutes of our board meeting held February 7th and a parking committee meeting held February 3rd. So, trustees have any amendments or questions on either of them? If not, I'd have a motion to approve our board meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then approve our minutes of the parking committee meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our consent docket, excuse me, a couple of items. Item C, we're going to have to defer till the next meeting. They didn't get their signed contract in. And then item A needs to be changed from retroactive February 1st to retroactive March 1st, and we need to take an individual vote on that item. So I would have a motion to approve item A.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that item B be pulled for a separate vote. I would ask that the item be amended so that the scheduled free rides only include those through the end of the current fiscal year, and that we would bring back another item after the budget's been approved for next fiscal year.
Do you have those dates?
It would be the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dates that end June 30th.
Okay.
That would I would move approval.
All right. Do I have a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item D and E, any questions on those two items? If not, I would have a motion to approve item D and E.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items for individual consideration. Item A is approval of scope of work for market research and data mining, and authorize us to advertise and release a proposal. Jason, yeah, any comments on?
Yeah, so this item here is requesting authorization to issue a request for proposal. This is really primarily for our rider and non-rider surveys that we do each year. As the trust is aware, we've had a multi-year contract in place with ETC Institute. They've provided that research for us in the past. That contract has expired. In fact, it expired in August. And in preparation of our next round of surveys, we want to issue an RFP and select an appropriate consultant to help us with that. So with approval of this item, we will issue that RFP. One comment for the trust is that the estimated cost there of $300,000, we're really looking at the estimated cost in total for the entire, what we expect to be 5-year period. It averages out to about $60,000 a year. Typically, we try to show that as an annual amount versus the amount for the entire contract, so I just wanted to make that clarification for you.
Any questions? If not, I have a motion to approve item A.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item B is an amendment number 2 to a change order for the CNG fueling station.
So we're just about have the CNG fueling station wrapped up. This change order 2 that you have before you for, I believe it's around $56,000. You'll notice in the attachment from the architect and engineering provider that primarily the change order is related to topsoil and fill that was required to kind of finalize the landscaping. There's also some expenses in relocating the new east entry gate and closing down one of our older entrance gates. Total change order amount is $56,000. And what I would like to share with the trust is that we are wrapping up this project. In fact, we began this week fueling our CNG buses out of the new facility. The contractor that constructed the facility, Trillium, they've been on site as we've been doing some of those fuelings, just kind of fine-tuning the facility for us. And so far, we are pleased with how it's going. So we'll be sure and keep the trustees updated and have a opening at an appropriate time. So.
All right, any questions? Not, then I have a motion to approve item B. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item C is a resolution approving a $200 one-time stipend and a 1% adjustment to the managed administrative and technical support pay plan. So, and I guess there's a spreadsheet in there, but I'll let Jason kind of explain that. It looks a little complicated to me.
So this is the pay plan adjustment for the non-represented Cotpa employees, and this particular item should be familiar to you in that we do this generally each year on the heels of what the City of Oklahoma City agrees to in terms of its management pay plan increase. So what you see here as a $200 one-time stipend and a 1% pay plan adjustment is consistent with what management employees on the city side received. So with approval of this, we'll make that 1% pay plan increase retroactive to July 1st. You have an estimated cost there on your memo of just over $31,000. And then in regards to the spreadsheet that was provided as part of your packet, the resolution references an exhibit as the pay plan. So that spreadsheet is actually the pay plan for the non-represented Cotpa employees.
Well, I noticed, I don't know how many years it goes out, but it doesn't cover the 33 years the chairman's been here. So what is my adjustment out at the end of
Yeah,
30?
well, we've got a special pay plan for the chairman, and it's got to be on really big paper, so left it out.
I think you're getting a CPI every year on your 0%, on your zero pay, right?
Yes, oh yes.
That's what I thought, okay.
And it's sure helped my cost of living. Okay, thank you. All right, now I have a motion to approve item C. All in favor, or second, excuse me. All in favor? Oh, thank you. Item D is approval of an agreement with McAfee Taft for labor legal services.
Yeah, so as the trustees are aware, we typically have an agreement with a law firm to help us from time to time with labor support, particularly with regards to negotiations. We've had a long-standing agreement in place with Crow and Dunlevy. However, in doing our due diligence, we do obviously go out to the market and issue proposals from time to time for legal services. In November, the trust actually authorized staff to issue a request for proposal. Those advertisements were made on November 8th and 15th. We actually received two proposals, one from Crow and Dunlevy, one from McAfee and Taft. The selection committee recommended McAfee and Taft team. And with approval of this item, we will have a one-year agreement with McAfee and Taft with 4 optional renewals. Our estimated cost for this item is $60,000 coming out of the transit operations account. And again, this is really kind of on an as-needed basis. And it's one of those contracts we hope we need to use very little.
All right, any questions? If not, I have a motion to approve item D.
Move approval.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item E is approval of an agreement for legal services on the pension plan.
All right, so, similar situation here with legal services for the pension plan as what I had described with legal services just for labor support in general. We, through the pension plan, have had a long-standing agreement with a law firm to help us when we have questions about our pension plan or there's new IRS regulations that require plan updates. And so again, staff and really to the committee's credit for sure as well in doing their due diligence, we issued a request for proposals back in November for legal services for the pension. We received 3 different proposals. The selection committee reviewed those proposals, awarded or is recommending award of contract to Kutak Rock LLP. This item has went to the pension committee, and the pension committee approved awarding to Kutak Rock. With approval of this item, again, this will be another one-year contract with 4 optional one-year renewals. Estimated cost $13,000. And again, there are sometimes on the pension side that we have very little interaction with our attorneys, and then other years where we've had to do complete plan updates. But we certainly need those services to call on when the situation warrants. The one thing that's a little bit different on the funding for this particular contract is the board will approve it. However, the expenses incurred do come out of the pension.
Okay. Any questions? Then I'd have a motion to approve item E.
Move approval.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item F is ratifying and approving an addendum 1 and 2, adopting a resolution extending the time to award a contract for Phase 2, the ferry landing and terminal upgrades.
Yes, so this item here is a new, as you mentioned, a new contract award, also testing, approving contract and bonds for our permanent structure at the Meridian Pavilion. And so I know Jeannie Smith, she's presented kind of our series of improvements along the Oklahoma River, consisting of improvements to the Exchange Landing, the new landing at Stockyards, and then this permanent pavilion at the Meridian Landing. Just to kind of recap some of the previous action, as you'll recall, when we were awarded a competitive grant for improvements along the Oklahoma River, this was one of those projects. It was kind of bundled with those others that I had described. Those bids came in over budget, so we separated this project out, used a alternate source of federal capital funds to fund this particular project, thus, a little bit of a delay in getting this project together. However, definitely pleased to report that with award of this contract, the contract will go to C4 LLC for $326,888. Construction will begin, obviously, upon award of the contract. We hope to be done sometime in the summer. So really looking forward to this improvement at Meridian. It's definitely been needed for several years.
All right. Any questions? Not, then I'd have a motion to approve. Excuse me, yes.
So, Jason, I'm glad to see this. Have we given any consideration as to how we could possibly tie in these various landings with some other organization, to see some activity there other than just a landing?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's some kind of I don't know. That's why I'm just raising the question. In terms of maybe you could even have some kind of a relationship to where you could have travel on the land to get to these landing spots, and then somehow tie this landing to some either restaurant or something, or some activity.
Yeah.
I would think in the Stockyards area there would be potential for some activity, and similarly on Meridian, to where it kind of becomes a destination point, or if the landing itself isn't a destination point, we can tie it into some type of destination point.
Yes, we can certainly revisit our promotional efforts for that type of situation. I do know, and credit to Jeannie and HMS and those that actively market the Oklahoma River cruises, we were actually really kind of building some clientele, some ridership from that Meridian landing. I know, working with, as you're describing, hotels and other businesses to promote it.
Right.
And we were actually kind of building some momentum for people using the river service to get into downtown and back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the situation, with just the condition of the river, really over the last year and a half, that has really tapered off. But we certainly plan to, at a minimum, resume those efforts, and then sure, we'll look for other opportunities. I know too, we're trying to promote some bike and boat events. Giving someone a reason. Sure. Hey, if you're riding the trail on your bike, you can take a boat as well.
And we could accommodate the bikes being brought onto the...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think is it four bikes.
We might have to expand that. I mean,
Yeah.
the number of bikes that can go on a bus is kind of limited at times.
Yeah. So, but we can look at that. But yeah, that would be good to look at.
And maybe some funding, because the convention and tourism, they get, Laura, they get a source of funding regularly from the motel tax, don't they?
Yes.
So maybe they could help promote that. How's the attendance during the spring through fall? Am I asking out of turn?
No, absolutely. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. We carry about 13,000 riders and between April and November. It's very light in November, of course, but and much heavier during the middle.
I should have asked it differently. Could we use some assistance in increasing the ridership during those periods, or are you at maximum capacity?
No, we could definitely carry more people.
Okay.
You're talking about working with businesses. We work
Sure.
with some of the tour operators.
Yeah.
And then the CVB has a CTA, Certified Tourist Ambassador Program, and we host them once a year to give them
Yeah.
like a familiarization tour so that when they're out talking to the public, they're very familiar with what they do and can help promote.
Good.
We speak with the hoteliers frequently out at Meridian. Of course, we didn't do a lot of that this year because we lost access to Meridian with the heavy rains and heavy silting. But, yeah, we do actively pursue.
Yeah. So just a second. So, Brent or Laura, we work with, like Stockyards has a bid or some activity that's designed to promote people coming down to the Stockyards. Maybe we could somehow work with them, and I'm sure there's one out there at Meridian, isn't?
Yeah.
There's not at
Oh,
Meridian, but
okay.
they've tried a couple of times.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
not currently.
Okay.
But I'll pass it along.
Yeah. Thank
And we
you.
have met
Thanks.
a couple of times with the Stockyard City Main Street people, and
Yeah,
they're very
that's the
excited
group I'm
about
talking
it.
about.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, David. Do I hear a motion to approve item F?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item G is to adopt a resolution ratifying the administrator's action in executing a paper grant agreement with the FTA for our bus rapid transit corridor.
Yes, so the paper grant agreement, that's an FTA term, not ours, but it's kind of the final step in the build grant that we received for the bus rapid transit route in terms of setting us up to where we can begin spending money on the project and having it count as local match. So just to kind of run you through the series of what we've had to do to get here. Okay. So apparently, that sounds a lot like the other word that my phone recognizes. So anyway, there's been several steps involved in getting to this point, and the first one was, of course, the award of the grant back in December of 2018. And then in January, City Council and Cotpa both approved an MOU basically authorizing Cotpa to represent the city and essentially manage the grant. And so now the final step is really this agreement between the FTA and Cotpa, spelling out, what is going to be used for local funding, what the timeline is, basically all the details of the grant. So with approval of this, we will, again, as I mentioned, be able to begin counting some of the expenses towards local match. And I do really want to, recognize there's a lot of staff that worked on this grant agreement and wouldn't be here without their efforts.
So our local match funding is all in place. I mean, it's...
Yeah, we've had a lot of coordination meetings with Public Works and Planning, and we actually are memorializing just internally what that local match funding plan is. Because if you'll recall, it's a combination of some of the GeoBond projects that Cotpa has, GeoBond projects on the city side, some of the Better Streets, Safer City funding, where we're putting in sidewalks, particularly along Classen. So it's really a combination of different projects that are making up that local match. And so, yes, we are working through all that and have identified all those. And again, giving a lot of credit to, what I would say is a team effort between Public Works and Planning and other departments in trying to bring all that together for this one project.
Jason. So on the second page, what worries me is the fact that, this agreement through September 1st of 2024. And we have a history of slowly getting things accomplished. And I would just encourage, especially as you continue to meet with the city, to let that get completed much earlier than 2024. I mean, that's 4.5 years from today. If we go back to 18, when the grant was first awarded, over 6 years. So don't stand for them saying, well, it takes time. We understand that, but it shouldn't take that long.
We agree. We don't expect it to go out that long. I mean, we plan to actually, start construction in late 21, hopefully no later than 22. I mean, it's still our plan to open it in 23. Now I know that sounds like a long time, but we do not want to go out to 24.
Good. Well, I'm encouraged to hear that. And I would gather as much data as possible, because it's anticipated this will be an economic driver in terms of economic development following the establishment of this route, to, take a snapshot of current state and then future state. Here we are today before any construction has began, even though people know where the route's at and may have anticipated and already taken steps to be a part of that. But as of today, here we are, and then once it's completed, looking at what has taken place in terms of private investment along the route.
Yes, yes, thank you for that suggestion, and I think we have a great model to follow, because we did, as you're describing, a similar thing with the streetcar. We were able to kind of get our baseline from when the route was announced, and then look at all that investment. I think it's really around $1.8 billion in public and private investment that we were able to look at from the time the route was announced till now. So yeah, similar thing with the BRT. I think you're right, would be very beneficial.
Because other cities have captured data that demonstrates, significant development following these BRTs.
And you're exactly right. That's part of the benefit, the advantage, the story of transit is it's not only ridership and moving people, but particularly with those type of rapid transit corridors, you want to see economic development come too.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. And so, total of $28 million, 13.7 from the city, and Cotpa 14.3 from the federal grant. So what's the $28 million mainly used for? Is it to purchase any type of a special vehicle, or is it mainly just to prepare the route? Or can you say that in general?
Yeah, I can describe it in general. It's going to pay for the stop platforms.
Yes.
So we'll have platforms along the corridor, the vehicles, some sidewalks, some traffic signal upgrades and priorities. Traffic signal priority technology, and then some traffic signal upgrades. I mean, that's the majority of where it will go.
Okay, so is there much difference between a BRT vehicle and a traditional bus?
So, yes. There are manufacturers that make a different bus in terms of the way it's styled and looks versus a typical 40-foot bus. I mean, are they, dramatically different? No, but
the style.
But the style does differentiate, that service from, say, a standard fixed route. And we'll also end up doing that through branding, too. We've kicked off, actually, we've had our first meeting on branding. So just like we branded the OKC streetcar, we'll have some type of branding for this BRT route that will differentiate it as well.
Interesting.
But yeah, the buses will have a different look and feel, particularly, I believe, or I'm optimistic, particularly on the interior, with some of the new flooring options that are available and seating options. And we do plan, however, though, to go with 40-foot buses. Our consultants helped us do that analysis. A lot of BRTs, you'll see the 60-foot articulated buses. And early on in the planning, we looked at that and determined that, based on our ridership estimates, we could easily handle it with 40-foot buses. That's a huge benefit to us on the maintenance side because we don't have another special piece of equipment. And it also, our facilities are designed for 40-foot buses. So we've kind of considered that part as well.
When I've attended some of those national meetings for public transportation, they do have a lot of vehicles on display, and some of them are pretty futuristic in appearance.
Right.
So that would be interesting to be able to obtain a couple of those. Because they really do distinguish themselves from traditional buses.
Yeah, and that's our goal. We do want it to definitely represent a different type or level of service.
Yeah.
Just by seeing the bus, for example.
We'll have to consider in-bus complimentary drinks and snacks. Or
Coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get that done by 2024, but
Okay.
Just put a Keurig in and give them a little pod, and they can fix their own coffee or something.
that's true.
Refresh my memory, where does the route begin on the west?
Well, it goes as far west as Meridian.
Meridian,
Yes.
okay, that's what and the time from Meridian to downtown, what do they estimate that to be?
I think we're looking at around a 40-minute travel time. I believe that's correct.
And how many stops? Are we there yet?
Still working on the exact number,
Okay.
but I'll have to get back with you on that.
Because I get a lot of
I'm sorry.
questions.
I seem to recall 22.
I was thinking 22 out and back, so I was thinking closer to
Round
40
trip,
some.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting. People have a lot of questions about it as things appear in the paper, and, and they expect me to know everything, and I can't.
Sounds like we better get you a few notes
Cheat card
so
or
we can get the
something.
questions.
All right. Any other questions on item G? Then I'd hear a motion to approve item G. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item H is a change order on our convention center parking garage. I guess the 42 days were added to the substantial completion, but you're still in, okay. We're still on the time frame to get it open in November, I think, or something.
Good morning. Yes, the 42 work days or 59 calendar days has been included in the date that we've been communicating for the past several weeks of early December, final completion in December. This change order also includes some steel framing that was overlooked for the southwest staircase. The cost would have been included in the original bids. However, one subcontractor thought the other subcontractor was doing it, and because of that fact, no overhead was included in those costs for this change order. Again, no overhead or profits for that, so we're paying actuals. A couple extra locks on some doors were added, and then some hose bids on each of the levels, so maintenance can be provided in case we need to wash something down quickly. Total change order cost is just under $191,000. That's an 8% increase Total change orders to date are just under $318,000, or 1.3%. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you, Corey.
You bet.
Then I'd hear a motion to approve item H.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next is to ratification of claims and payroll. If there's no questions, I'd have a motion to ratify that. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, our financial statements. Jason, any particular points you'd like to make on those and when we review them?
Sure. I would like to make a few comments on the transportation, the parking report, the Embark Norman, and then streetcar budget to actual. So if we could start on page 2, this is the budget to actual for the transportation operations. Really just wanted to mention to the trust, and I think I've said this in previous months, but I mean, really, when you look at the total revenues, the main variance is simply the timing of receiving our federal grant reimbursements. And I am pleased to report to the trustees this morning, as I had mentioned last month, we did receive our next grant, and we were able to do 2 reimbursement requests in February. One of them, of approximately $3 million, actually hit in this week, so the 1st of March. So it's still going to be a couple months before, you see that revenue catch back up on the budget to actuals, but did want to report that we are caught up with our reimbursements now. And then really, if you look down at the expenditures, each of the expenditure categories is under budget. Continue to see some savings in fuel and personal services. Operating loss on the bottom line there of $2.1 million will obviously be offset and be a positive number once we have that federal grant revenue reflected in our budget to actuals. On page 3, this is Embark Norman, and just really one quick comment on this financial. At the suggestion of the trustees, we made a change to this report, and where you see the revenues, we actually have 2 revenue lines now. One is the reimbursement for operating expenses, so that's basically, if we have an expense, we charge it back to Norman, they reimburse us. And then the second revenue line there, the administrative charge revenue, this is what we determined we would separate out just so we could see, what was coming to support transit operations overall above and beyond just the expense reimbursement. So you'll be seeing that in future reports. And then looking at page 4, this is our parking operations. A couple of comments for you here. On the revenues, we're tracking through basically 7 months of the fiscal year about $115,000 less in revenue than what we had budgeted. And you can see, and as we've talked about it before, that is really a result of monthly contract revenue coming in less than what we had expected. And you can see, based on our occupancy rates and the parking report, that it's not a surprise in that our contract revenue down, our vacancy is up. But I do want to go ahead and just, if I could, kind of set the stage for where I think we're going to finish the end of the year. And at the rate we've been going, it's very likely we could finish, around $200,000 or so under on our monthly contract revenue by the time we get to the end of the year. Now, with that said, if I could direct your attention to the operating income line, you can see that through 7 months of the fiscal year, even with that variance in revenue, we're still almost $1.2 million to the good. So our revenues exceeded our expenses by $1.2 million. So we'll still certainly have, positive cash flow. We'll be able to add funding to our reserves, just not as much as what we had anticipated in the budget. And then the last comment I want to share with you is on the debt service transfer under the expenditure line. Generally when you see this report, the actual expenditure for debt service aligns pretty much exactly with the budget, because as we set that debt service aside, we know exactly what our payment schedule is. Well, this year with the refunding, that schedule got off a little bit, and so when we were developing the budget, although we revised the numbers, we still had budgeted anyway, paying some debt service in September and October, and in reality, we weren't required to put aside any money for debt service in those 2 months, because 1 month the bonds were defeased and the second month the bonds were issued. So we'll work with accounting to kind of reconcile that budget to the actual payment schedule as we move forward.
Where do you think it end up this fiscal year? Just the debt service under budget?
Oh, well, we'll actually be, let me see here. 68. I think we should probably finish right around 800,000, I believe. And so we're probably going to come in about 150,000 less, I think, in debt service than maybe what we have budgeted.
Had a question on the lease income.
Yes.
And that's down, or we've not fully leased. Is that all in the Arts District garage? Or?
No, actually, when we developed we also lease space in the Santa Fe Depot, as you're aware. When we developed the budget, we rolled in the lease space, all of our lease revenue, and did not pull the Santa Fe piece out of this budget. And so since the budget was adopted by the board, we've left it in there. So we'll see that variance throughout the rest of the fiscal year. Okay, and then finishing comments on streetcar operations, page 7. Really just wanted to direct your attention, if I could, to the streetcar operations expenditure line. This is one we've discussed in previous board meetings, where, basically the budget to actual was reflecting an understatement of expenses because we were actively reviewing invoices and negotiating a few items. But I am, again, reporting to the trust that we are basically caught up now on getting those invoices to our contractor paid. You can see that the streetcar operations expenses compared to budget are now right around 93% of what we had expected. Glad to answer any other questions. And we can follow up on a debt service projection for you, Mr.
That
Chairman.
sounds a little low. I thought it'd be higher than that.
So you're wanting to know how much less we're going to spend in debt service
For
than
this
what we had
fiscal year,
originally
basically, what
budgeted?
we budgeted, yes, because of the defeasance and issuing the new bonds.
Okay, so for clarity then, that will be a different number than what I had mentioned, because the budget number we're looking at now is that new adopted budget after we defeased the bonds.
Okay.
We brought an amendment back. Mm-hmm. So what I'll do is I can get the trust how much we're going to save in debt service over the entire year compared to our original budget before we defease the bonds, if that's what we need to look at, because that's really where the majority of the savings came from.
It was a lot.
Yeah, it's
it was
a
a
lot.
pretty big number,
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you were mentioning, because we didn't pay debt service there for a month or so, how much would we save?
Yeah.
So I got you now, and we'll get those
Okay.
numbers for you.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? If not, I'd have a motion to receive our financial reports.
So moved.
All in favors? Opposed? Thank you. Program reports. Streetcar Report is the first one. Jesse?
Morning to my
Morning.
favorite board. Everyone had a wonderful February. We'll jump right into it. So as promised, we submitted our Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan to ODOT for comment on February 3rd. So typically, whenever you submit a document to ODOT, they have 30 days to turn that document around for comments. So we're anticipating comments back from ODOT on Monday. And we'll take those comments and we'll incorporate them into our plan, and then we'll submit that document back to ODOT for final review, again, with anticipation of bringing that document to the June 5th board for approval to meet our July of 2020 deadline. We also, in February, submitted our safety management implementation plan. And so essentially what that plan does is it takes a look at our agency and identifies any gaps that could be there for SMS, and then it looks at how to coordinate those and then implement it over the course of the next 5 years, because that's how long we have. We have 5 years to be fully integrated with our SMS. And it also included the policy statement here that was included in our plan. So essentially what that means is that Mr. Fairbrush, our accountable executive, and Mr. Fritz, our chief safety officer, their commitment to follow the SMS program and to implement that into our agency. So in February, we also crossed over our 500,000th rider mark. I was out trying to take a picture of the streetcar. This guy kept jumping out in front of it to take pictures, but seriously, so we knew that we were going to be crossing over that threshold on February 1st. We were watching our ridership, and we notified the mayor that we crossed over that threshold, and being the advocate and the supporter he is of the streetcar, he's actually having dinner with his family, and he jumped out and ran out to this platform to be able to take a picture of the streetcar and post it on social media to show that support. So, as always, we appreciate that support. Also in February, we hosted our How to Transit event. Councilwoman Jo Beth Hammond was there and essentially took a group of people out and showed them how to ride the bus, how to pay for fares, where the buses go, and then they also got a free visit to Factory Obscura. It was pretty exciting. Also in February, we got to experience our first winter weather event, right? So we've had a couple of ice storms that we've anticipated and been able to get out in front of, but the winter weather mode. So one of the cool things about our winter weather mode is that in anticipation of making sure that we're able to provide service the next morning, we bring our staff in, we secure hotel rooms at a local hotel. And so we bring that staff in. They stay overnight at the hotel, so they're able to, we don't have to worry about them driving in the morning, right? So they're already local. We can take our van, we can pick them up, bring them in, and we're able to provide service first thing in the morning without any issues. Our maintenance staff, overnight, they're constantly making sure that the platforms are cleared off and making sure that our trackway is clear and safe for passengers to ride, including the platforms and the walkways up to the platforms. And then as soon as the snow is cleared out, we come out and we clean off our platforms and make sure all the grime and everything is cleared away. Also in February, we hosted our Art Moves event with Mr. Lucas Ross on board the streetcar playing banjo. Also, if you haven't had a chance to go out to the Banjo Museum, I highly recommend it. Incredible, not what I expected at all. Amazing. We also released our Date Night in Style guide in February. So essentially, there's this holiday in February. Some people recognize Valentine's Day. So we put out this guide to help some of us take people out for dinner, those types of things. So essentially, you go to the O Bar for pre-drinks, then Red Prime for your dinner, then you go to Brickopolis to enjoy the games and stuff, then you wrap it up at Hall's Pizza with dessert, my favorite. I do have a Love the Loops video I want to release here. This Water's Edge Winery. So we released this back in February, and we're constantly showing this on our social media page. You may have recognized one of the, Ty was in the video. I promise she was off the clock drinking that wine, but we love releasing these videos. It's awesome. Also, so one of our Love Loop partners is the Bricktown Water Taxi, and Chad and his group, they went out and enjoyed the streetcar, rode around the loop a couple of times, enjoying the local restaurants and bars and stuff. And if you haven't had a chance to meet Chad, he's a pretty incredible guy. So ridership in February, it's exactly where we anticipated it to be. So February, I always say if you don't see people out on the sidewalks, typically the ridership's going to be down. And so in February, with the weather, we had the snow and winter weather. We anticipated ridership being down a little bit in February. So it's actually about 6% less than what it was last year in February. I'm sorry, actually higher, 22,000. So 2,000 higher than it was last year. So pretty incredible, right? So last year we were still riding the wave of opening the streetcar, and we actually seen an increase in February of this month. So we're happy to see that. This is the breakout for the month there. So we had a total of 22,212 riders throughout February. Enjoyed that leap day, get that extra day of ridership in there. So that concludes my presentation. So one thing I did want to point out, so right now I'm not scheduled to be presenting next month. It concludes my month-to-month presentations, but I did want to make sure that I put it out there to the board. So we've been meeting with the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon, right, in anticipation for the memorial run that's coming up. And so our current plan is that we will be operating Sunday, April 26th, the day of the marathon. We'll start service at 4 a.m., right, so to get those runners from their hotels or wherever they're at, to get them to the starting line. So we'll be running from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. We'll actually be suspending service from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. To allow the race to happen downtown, and then immediately at 11 a.m. we'll begin service again, right? So leading up to that 6 a.m. mark, we'll be putting our streetcars in strategic locations so that they can roll right back into service at 11 a.m. We'll have security staff at those locations watching over the streetcars where they're staged, then we'll roll right back into service. Then also on April 19th for the ceremony, we don't have the exact times nailed down just yet, but we are anticipating that we will also be suspending service for a short period of time on April 19th. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out there to you guys. Be happy to answer any questions. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it's a safety question. I was on the APTA site looking at the different public statements they've released, different cities have released about making sure that public transit is safe and secure when it comes to spreading infectious diseases.
Absolutely. Yep.
I was just looking at what the BART does, and I was wondering what our typical procedure looks like. And
Sure. Go ahead.
You mind if I take that one?
Please.
All right. I can speak, globally kind of what we're doing department-wide, if you'd like. So, multitude of items that we address on a regular basis for the reasons you're mentioning. So as far as what we've done department-wide is following some of the best practices or recommendations that are coming out of the industry is, we have looked at, of course, updating our continuity of operations plan. We routinely clean, disinfect all of our transit vehicles, whether it be bus or streetcar. That work continues to go on. Our utility maintenance workers that maintain our facilities, a transit center and other. Weeks ago, in fact, we began, reinforcing, the need to make sure that, all surfaces that individuals will come in contact with, are wiped down, disinfected. So, basically, as a transit agency, public health, keeping our vehicles and facilities clean is part of what we do, and we just continue to do what we've always done, just reinforcing the importance of it primarily with our staff. And speaking of our staff, we did get a memo out this week to staff, just reminding them of, good, whatever you want to call it, hygiene habits, on how to protect yourself really from any kind of illness. So, that answer?
Perfect. Okay. Thanks for being so attentive.
All right. Any other questions of Jesse? All right. Thank you. parking system report.
Been somewhat of a busy couple of weeks. Our public parking signs are all installed. Thank you. At the Cox Center, one of the signs lacks power, and we still need to do some fine tuning on the public parking signs, but they're all up. SCADATA hardware and software upgrades. When I wrote this presentation, we only scheduled Wednesday to do some testing, financial reporting testing of the system in a closed environment to make sure all the tickets are collected and revenues were proper. That actually extended into Thursday, late afternoon. Very pleased with the results so far. We're still manually auditing the new report packages and whatnot, but so far, very, very excited. Looking forward to installation. We're hoping to start installation late this month. The parking study has been completed, adopted, and implementation is underway. The Flowbird parking app that will mostly cater to the on-street parking side of the business will also impact the off-street parking, as via that app you'll be able to reserve and purchase a parking space in the parking garage, and then via your phone be able to scan at the new hardware to get in and out of the garage. That's not to say that you'll be able to reserve space 1, 2, 3 in a particular garage, but a space. That app is looking to launch in summertime, early summer. Surface lot expansion, that's already underway. I believe it was last month or the prior month. The trust signed a lease agreement with the city of Oklahoma City for a small surface lot in Bricktown area. That lot, we intend to sublease that lot to an individual for Monday through Friday, business hours, a monthly parking operation, and then use that for hourly and event parking for Bricktown. A couple pictures of our parking signs. Again, at Cox, we do need to do some landscaping around both of these signs. And then again, hook up power. Our Century Center sign and our 2 Arts District signs. New garage update. Picture of the framing of the second floor. All of our conduit, I took this picture deliberately. You'll see that all of our conduit's buried underground and is buried in the columns. So when we open that new garage, you will not see conduit running along the sides of the concrete slabs and whatnot. Here we were pouring our first slab on grade on the south side, or our final slab on grade on the south side. That was a couple weeks ago. This is an image looking towards E.K. Gaylord, south end of the garage, looking east. You can see how the garage bumps out. That will be our cantilever effect over the sidewalk. Yesterday, this picture was taken yesterday. This is us pouring the fourth and final pour for the second floor of the garage. So the second floor of the garage has been poured. We're looking at pouring a fourth of each floor every 4 to 5 days. So we'll be tall soon. Any questions?
Just one. Any consideration about keeping the new parking signs lit during the daytime just to help attract, especially, a person who doesn't come downtown often, just to help them identify the fact that it is public parking available?
Yeah.
I don't know what the cost would be, but it especially
They are LED lights, so the energy consumption's
minor.
minor.
I would suggest we at least try it to see if that helps with
Okay.
people identifying these lots as public parking lots. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Any other questions, Corey? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, marketing and technology. You sure been on TV a lot. I mean,
Lately, we've been busy, you're right. Well, thank you for having me this morning. Appreciate the opportunity to update you on things going on in the marketing and technology division. Last year, we gave you an update on what kind of content and the content and the number of posts that we were making on social media. So this is an update for the year of calendar year 2019. I won't go through all of them, but you'll see that we created more than 3,300 posts across our 15 different social media platforms. And that also doesn't include, though, all the responses to customer questions, issues that they may have encountered, or it could even just be commendations, or even the other content that we produce on a monthly basis, such as the date night guide that Jesse mentioned earlier, or other blogs that are in our newsletters that we send out each month. We really love what we do, and that's sharing the story about our brand and the services we provide and the impact we're making in our community. And I just want to say I'm thankful to work with Ty and Caitlin, who helped put this together and give us a lot of creativity in those pieces every month. On display at the Sheridan Walker Garage is a little bit more of that creativity. We've got a couple of wraps on the garage elevators, and they're puzzles. So we went back to the days of the little highlight magazines that we used to do as kids with puzzles and guides, and it's all transit themed. And if you can see in that maze, there's a picture there of something related to us, as well as transit terminology and words. And instructions inside and outside there will tell you what to do. You can go and complete that, let us know, and you could even win a prize to go to lunch or dinner along the streetcar route in one of our Love the Loop restaurants. Be sure to keep an eye out, though, for some additional wraps inside the elevators throughout the rest of the parking system, too. So we have some pretty neat things going on there as well. Last time I was here, we were telling you about wrapping up the final pieces related to the real-time map for Streetcar. And with your help and the help of a few others who were helping test the site and give us feedback, we were able to make some of those changes and put some others on a list so that we can continue to work on them. This next week we'll be launching this to the rest of the world so they can start taking advantage of it. And Caitlin, one of our strategists, has created this little video to kind of show you how to use it. So be looking for additional posts, also other materials that will be coming out. We've just wrapped up shooting another more commercial-like video showing how to use that and how you can use that with the streetcar along the route and using games. When you go to games, concerts, or even are just having lunch, how it can be a helpful tool in planning that trip. And those will be released very soon. Another major project that we're tackling is something that we've had around for a little while now. So in March of 2014, so that's just about 6 years ago this month, we launched, you probably remember, a new brand, realigned our routes, we created a new campaign and a website. And what you see here are stats after our very first year of launching that website. And today, if we look at the last year, you'll see that some of the stats have changed. So what I want to share with you is that today we're seeing about 165,000 unique users, and that's an 82% increase from the very first year. And over 1.8 million page views in the last year. That's a 214 increase from our first year. And more than 72% of our site users across the site are using a mobile device to access the website. And you'll see in our first year, only 50% was. So that's quite an increase as well of about 156% when we're looking at how they're accessing the site. And there are over 1.5 billion websites in the world today. Now, they tell us that only about 200 million of those are actually active and are changing and updating on a routine basis. And so according to Orbit Media, of the top 200 websites, the average site is only 2.7 years old. So those are your top commercial sites. They're changing them that dramatically and keeping pace with the technology. And this month, as I mentioned earlier, EmbarkOK.com turns 19. Now, I promise I do know how to do multiplication, and so I'm going to tell you how we got to that number. According to Medium.com's iYears calculator, they tell us that every single year, calendar year, in a piece of technology's life equates to 3 years of a Homo sapiens life. So that would mean this baby would be graduating high school this year and would be leaving home. So she grew up so fast, right? So actually, we've changed a lot, haven't we, in the last 6 years? Just look at where Embark has come since 2014 in that March timeframe. We really have a lot to celebrate. You have a lot to celebrate. The world has also changed, and we've also seen that customers' expectations have evolved around the technology improvements that have been made as well. So in January, we started the development of our next iteration of the website. Before you, you'll see that a site map is what we call it. This is our guide for how we're going to create and continue to develop this next version of our website. What you don't see today is that we're managing 5 different websites across 5 different platforms, and all 5 have very different user experiences. Some are more adaptive to the technology than others. And frankly, it's been pretty exhausting and tedious keeping up with all of those and keeping them in working order. One thing we noticed over the years is that our brand equity grew, and you've heard our consultant, ETC, talk to us about how our brand equity continues to grow, the recognition of the brand. And what we are seeing is that more and more people are starting to come to EmbarkOK.com to look for parking, to look for ferry, to look for bike share, to look for streetcar. And so what we are going to do is we're going to take a different approach this time. And our family of services will now be manageable under and accessible from a single system that shares resources. And so that's going to make it easier for us to maintain and operate, and also make us a more multimodal website. And because nearly 90% of our visitors access the site from a mobile phone, the site will be optimized for that phone device. And when it talks about mobile devices, I do want to clarify that it is a phone. They rank tablets in a very separate category, and that's a very small percentage. In fact, it was less than 2% accessing from a tablet. So going on to some other things that we've been working on, and that's with Embark Norman. We're really enjoying getting to know the mayor, Bria Clark, and the other council members. And in fact, we got to host a read and ride with her back in January. And we took a trip starting at the beautiful new library there. If you haven't had a chance to see it, definitely go out and check it out. It's phenomenal. And we also got to engage with some school-age kids and got to hear them read to us a little bit as well. It was a really nice time. And just earlier in that week, we hosted a few state legislators on a trip as well. I think last month Jesse talked about that taking place with those that serve our districts here in the Oklahoma City area. And so it was a good opportunity to show them how transit works in the city of Norman. What are some of the areas where improvements could be made and how the state could step up and help in those areas. And as usual, our operations team, they just performed flawlessly. Had smooth rides, on time, and very courteous. Couldn't have done it without them. Well, as Jesse mentioned, it's, when I go last, it's hard to always keep all the good stuff saved for last. But I do want to share a little more about our How to Transit event. And that's where we had more than 25 ride with us, and the majority of those were non-users. They had never used Embark services before. So this was a great opportunity to teach others how to use the system. At the same time, it gave us an opportunity to showcase the multimodal aspect of our system of transferring from bus to streetcar, to and from, and we all made it within the schedule that we'd planned. So that's just great. And we had such an unusually warm day that January day. We really enjoyed being out there together, and that just made it all that much more pleasant. We are planning another How to Transit event. We're going to look at trying to do these quarterly if possible, and so keep your eye out. If you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. So I just want to wrap up by saying that 2020 is off to a great start. We have an ambitious year ahead of us. When the things that we're looking at is wrapping up some filming for some new commercials that showcase our family of services, launching the new embarkok.com, as well as continuing the kickoff process for the highly anticipated bus rapid transit system, relaunching real-time arrival technology in Norman. We want to celebrate the opening of the CNG facility that's coming up very soon. And Corey has a few projects, such as that garage he showed you, as well as an on-street parking app that we look forward to helping him promote. And of course, don't forget, ferry season starts in April, so we want to get as many people out there as possible. And next week, one of our very first sponsors of the streetcar is having a huge celebration. It's this little building at the north end of Broadway called Oklahoma Contemporary. And so that'll be opening at the end of next week. We hope you'll get out and join us, and we'll have streetcar services available free all that weekend so others can come out and enjoy that as well. And that's all I have right now.
All right, any questions of Michael?
Michael, could we go back to the original website of Embark?
Certainly.
So right there on the right, it says features, journey planner, I understand that. Detours, I understand that. In real-time arrivals, I understand that. What's the service center and the library feature?
Yeah, so the service center up there is where you would use, if you're looking at the top bar across the top there, it says Connect. And so that's going to be kind of like what the city has and they call the Action Center. In fact, we were launching they were launching their system at the same time as ours, and we worked together not to name them the exact same thing so that when we're referring to it, it wouldn't confuse people. Okay. But the service center is very, very much just like what the Action Center for OKC.gov does. And that takes any inquiries, comments, suggestions, complaints, and routes it into a workflow and routes it out to staff so that we can respond to those in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And then the library, what that is that's a feature where we house all of our planning documents that we have produced and published to the public. Those are housed there so that you can go and look at our research, our data. It could be our board meeting information. You'll find all of that there. So it's a library in which you can go and learn more about Embark and what things are going on.
Great, thank you. So does the new website expand the number of features, or is it the same ones?
Yeah, it'll continue to take those and take them to the next level so that there's different tools and widgets that will make it even easier and better, as well as we'll be introducing a few new things as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Michael, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, I have a motion to receive our program reports. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, any items from the trustees? You've overstayed your welcome, David. You've asked too many questions here today. Okay. No. Jason, any final comments?
Mr. Chairman, during our last meeting, you had asked for us to consider providing a RTA update, perhaps even included in the program reports. And So we're looking at the most efficient way to do that, but I did want to go ahead and provide just a kind of a recap of our first meeting supporting the Regional Transit Authority and kind of what we've been working on as staff to make that transition. So as mentioned, we did have our first meeting last month. We've been working and successfully executing our transition plan. Transition plan meaning, switching basically the finances and the records and all that from ACOG over to Cotpa and the RTA. So we've been working through that. We've transitioned the banking services so that we are going to be prepared as staff and as part of the RTA support team to be able to pay claims on behalf of the RTA in March. The marketing group has began standing up really just a very basic website for the RTA. And then, of course, our procurement team has been busy assisting in review of an RFQ that the RTA is working on in an effort to select a consultant to help update the commuter corridor study that was done back in the 2012-2013 period. So we've really been, pretty busy with activities and keeping, our part of the agreement between Cotpa and the RTA. And again, it's really another opportunity to just mention how much we appreciate the support from, other city departments. Accounting has been a huge help to us, particularly with transitioning the finances over. And so we'll just continue to work through that and support both trusts moving forward.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, okay.
I'll extend it to one more month, my moratorium from questions. So, Jason, with respect to the Regional Transit Authority, can you address the possibility of, until we get to the point where we can fund rail, of a substitute of like a bus rapid transit system to connect the regional communities? Is that feasible, or are the highways so congested that it couldn't be accomplished?
So generally, what you're mentioning, generally that is an acceptable approach, or even a traditional approach in some cases where, the rubber tire service, the commuter type bus service, or even an express type bus service, a lot of times will precede a fixed guideway service. You build the ridership, and then you expand and transfer into rail. So it's certainly not unheard of, and it may be something that we could do within our region. I think those kinds of questions will definitely be answered with this, commuter corridor study that we're looking to, or I should say that the RTA is looking to update. But it's certainly a possibility, and really we have a possibility now to even explore that a little bit with our partnership with Norman. We do have that express route that runs between Norman and Oklahoma City, and I think that would be an opportune service to look at now.
Well, just as long as you do request that that idea gets addressed by the study that's coming up.
Will do.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Jason?
No, sir.
Okay. Then I would say our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming today.